This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America for this Wednesday. I'm Seth Merrill. Happy you took the time to join us. Coming up a little later on the show, Wednesday morning means our weekly visit from Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, and Night School. Jeremy, we're going to take a look at that Hollywood preview, Shared Belief, which has been getting a little buzz from Sunday as a 2-year-old to keep our eyes on. Shared Belief now announced to be coming into the Cash Call Futurity a little later on at Hollywood. And we're going to use that as a little bit of a jumping off point to discuss some other 2-year-olds that have won some stakes races but may otherwise be floating a little bit under the radar. A little after bottom of the hour, we will be joined by Gene Kirschner from the Buffalo News. He also is a board member for Thoroughfan, the racing fan organization that has some outlets at various racetracks around the country. They participated. They had a booth and information table set up at the Breeders' Cup. Gene was out at the Breeders' Cup. Going to talk a little, just some Breeders' Cup thoughts from him. He was live on the ground there. So as we're still less than 2 weeks out, so we will do some recap thoughts, but also talk maybe some eclipse ideas coming out of the Breeders' Cup, some of these divisions that maybe are locked up and some that maybe aren't locked up. So Gene Kirschner coming up again after the bottom of the hour. News from the past 24 hours or so, the Maryland Jockey Club tracks are going to have 146 racing days in 2014, similar calendar to what they had this year. Laurel will open on January 1st for a 46-day meet that will end on March 29th. Pimlico, 35 days from April 3rd to June 7th. Laurel will return for a 65-day fall meet from September 5th to December 31st. And Timonium will have a short summer meet from late August through Labor Day. So again, pretty similar to what they did this year in Maryland. And Maryland, as we've said for, I guess it's going back to spring, when they signed that essentially 10-year agreement between the state and the racing entities that seemed to kind of lock in some stability for Maryland. So Maryland, which in the chase for slots, and after getting slots, but not at the racetracks, things were a little dicey for Maryland for a while. Again, seems like things are much more stable now and in pretty good shape. You would think that will help the Maryland breeding industry bounce back, because when the tracks were in that dicey situation, Maryland breeding was taking a little bit of a hit too, with some of the outfits or some of the stallions moving out of state and whatnot. Maryland being one of the kind of the bedrocks of racing in America. It's not quite that anymore, but I mean, you go back to the Washington, D.C. International at Laurel for years and years. The Laurel Futurity was a very big 2-year-old race. The Laurel Futurity is still on the calendar. It's not what it used to be. I think it's a grass sprint now, so it's not what it used to be, certainly. But Maryland Millions Day was one of the first of those state-bred programs, showcase days. That still is held at Laurel in the fall every year and is very big. But again, Maryland has always been important to American racing, so it's good for the game that they have bounced back from a little bit of turmoil within the past 10 years. And again, over the past 6 months or so, things have stabilized and will continue to be that way, certainly into 2014 now, with a calendar that is very, very similar to what we saw this year. Dogwood Stable, Cott Campbell announced Palace Malice, who one of the top 3-year-olds, certainly of 2013, done for this year, aiming for a race in March at Fairgrounds. The New Orleans Handicap on March 29th is the goal at this point for Palace Malice. I always find it interesting. You know, they retired Orb last week. Said, gee, he's in great shape. He looks great. And just decided it's time to retire. If he's in great shape, why are you retiring him? Why not go to the Cigar Mile? Why not keep him racing? So you always scratch your head in situations like that. Well, similarly here, they announced they're not going to come back until March 29th with Palace Malice, who came out of the Breeders' Cup and also ran in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But Palace Malice, according to Cott Campbell, ran just about every month and thrived on it. He's a throwback to the old campaigners. Then why to the sidelines for 4 months? But they said, Cott Campbell goes on to say the Donnet Gulfstream comes up too quick, but Todd Pletcher, the trainer, agreed that the New Orleans race at the end of March would be logical. And again, it's a head scratcher. You got a horse that is a throwback to an old campaigner, thrives on racing, and he goes to the sideline for 3 or 4 months. But Palace Malice will be back as a 4-year-old. I guess we can celebrate that. Did it mention yesterday or the day before the Belmont figures, the Belmont handle and attendance figures jumped up nicely for the fall meet. That's certainly a bonus and positive for the racing game, New York being the stalwart in the game. So when the numbers are good there, they reflect it all over. And the wagering numbers for the United States, in fact, in the month of October, up a pretty significant 8.3%. That's despite an almost 6% decline in racing days. That's the number of races that are run throughout the country. So there was a cutback in the number of races, but a pretty significant jump in the handle. So those two numbers are a very positive number for racing in America. We'll note, though, and noted this in respect to the nice numbers that the Breeders' Cup put up this year, and it is noted in the article that was put out about these national numbers in October. Numbers are up nationally, but they're partially due to the fact that last year in October that we were being hit with numbers declining because of Hurricane Sandy up here in the Northeast. So when you look at last year, the numbers last year went down 8.8% as compared to 2011. Much of that due to Hurricane Sandy. So essentially we're kind of bouncing back, still up from 2011, but 2011 may be the better comparison, again, as Sandy, the Hurricane Sandy affected things in October last year, pretty much here in the Northeast where a lot of the national betting is done. However, the jump in October handle nationally now puts the national handle for the year of 2013 into positive territory, up just a little bit, about a little over 0.5% as compared to the same 10 months back in 2012. So positive numbers nationally right now for the handle. So we'll hope that keeps going through the next couple of months. The Horse of the Year awards, they don't fool around over there in Europe. They have a flat season and then they have a jump season. And the flat season is pretty much wound down. The Champions Day in Britain, the Arc, kind of the culmination of their flat season over there. Now they're ramping up. They do have some all-weather courses. They do still run on the flat during the winter, but it is not at a high quality by any means. The champions, the big horses, are done for the year, and the focus goes on jump racing over there now. But they've wrapped up their flat season. That means it's time for the Cartier Awards. That essentially is similar to our Eclipse Awards. The Cartier Awards are their year-end honors. And Trev, the undefeated 3-year-old filly who won the Arc, has been named the Cartier Horse of the Year. And Trev, very, very impressive winning that Arc, just looking at the past performances here. Trev, again, 3-year-old filly, trained by Cricket Head, came into the Arc with only 4 career starts. Won all 4 of those, and then very impressive winning the Arc as well. Wins the Arc in her 5th career start. So 5 for 5 now is the 3-year-old filly, Trev. And again, the Cartier Horse of the Year over in Europe. And like the Eclipse Awards, there's a Horse of the Year, but then there are also, they parse out the various categories. And just looking at some of the various categories that may have some meanings to some of us as American fans. Magician was named the 3-year-old Colt of the Year over there. Magician, of course, having won over here in the Breeders' Cup, similar to the 2-year-old filly Crescelium, a winner over here in the Breeders' Cup, was named their 2-year-old filly of the year as well. So the Cartier Awards, Europe's essentially equivalent to the Eclipse Awards. Trev, the Arc winner, was named the Horse of the Year over in Europe. A Keeneland sale continues. Of course, that was the sale that Groupie Doll was sold at last week, but it's a multiple-day sale. It does continue yesterday on Tuesday. Numbers continue to be very good. The sale has been really kind of knocking it out of the park. The horse that got the high price yesterday, we're pretty deep in the sale, but they're still selling some nice horses and for decent prices. $450,000 for General Election. And General Election, this was interesting to me because General Election is a horse, 10 career starts, 4 first, a couple of seconds. But the first that attracted my attention was the Arlington Classic, a grade 3, back in May. And that was the first turf start for General Election. And I thought at that point, General Election could be a very interesting horse in the 3-year-old turf division, the subdivision of 3-year-old turf runners. The horse had run in the Spiral Stakes on the synthetic at Turf Ray and run 10th, decent second in the Lexington at Keeneland, but then subsequently, as I say, shipped to Arlington in May, won the Arlington Classic in the first start on the turf, but then did not live up to that. Came back in the American Derby on Arlington Million weekend, ran 7th, shipped out to the Del Mar Derby, ran 5th, came back over to Churchill Downs, though, during the September meet, and I found this horse very interesting on that comeback turf in the Jefferson Cup at Churchill Downs. I took a little shot there. Betting public agreed, and General Election did get it done. Subsequently sold. Be interesting to see what the game plan is now going to be for General Election, because, again, that Arlington Classic to me was impressive and seemed like this horse was going to be really interesting on the turf. A couple of duds, and then the comeback to the Jefferson Cup. So it proved to be interesting with a couple of grade 3s on the turf. General Election, again, sold yesterday at Keeneland, $450,000. We'll keep our eyes open and see what the game plan may be there. Just also wanted to mention on December 4th, Hong Kong international races are going to be coming up in December. Part of that whole Hong Kong international celebration is the International Jockeys Championship. And we're going to have some nice rooting interest for the United States. Among the candidates over there, Christophe Soumillon, who from Belgium, but he's certainly a top European rider. We have Ryan Moore from the UK is going to be over there. He won a couple of the turf races at the Breeders' Cup, so he attracts a little bit of attention too. But our rooting interest, Gary Stevens and Mike Smith, going to go over, take on the internationals, December 4th in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong International Jockeys Championship. Smith and Stevens coming off a couple of big days at the Breeders' Cup. They were part of the main story there, and the Geritol boys, as they've been named, late in the careers, really having spectacular 2013s, and they're going to give those of us here in the United States some real interest in this International Jockeys Championship, Hong Kong, on December 4th. As we get closer, we'll certainly keep our eyes on that. And as I say, some real rooting interest for those of us over here for that event, which is bringing together a stellar international cast. All right, we're going to go to the first break. Before we do, I got a little bit of video. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long, but it was a nice video put together by the folks at America's Best Racing, just recapping Breeders' Cup weekend. Touches on a couple of the big finishes, but also picks up the crowd and talks to some of the celebrities that were there. A little brief interview with John Elway, for instance. So I just thought we'd pull this up. Again, some memories and some of the highlights from the Breeders' Cup weekend about a week and a half ago, as well as meeting some of the celebrities that were out there that day. That 3 or 4 minute piece is going to bring us into this first break. When we come back, as noted, Jeremy Plonk from HorsePlayerNow.com, talk a little bit about the Hollywood preview this past Sunday, and then use that as a foundation for talking some 2-year-olds. All of that after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to legendary Santa Ana Park.
Here comes London Bridge on the far outside. He just kicked it in. And London Bridge comes from Europe to win the marathon.
And away they go.
And the comeback kid, Gary Stevens, have won the Breeders' Cup Distaff with authority.
They're all in line, and we are ready for the start of this terrific race.
So here we are. It's a great place to be. The energy is incredible. So let's go around the track and check out and see what's going on.
I just, there's something about the track to me coming, this event particularly, it's a classy event, like I said, I like to put a suit on. I just like watching horses run,
When I was a kid, my dad and I used to go to track all the time, and it became a very bonding family experience between two men. It's exciting, you get to bet, You get to see some glamorous ladies. That's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure then, it's a little more relaxed for me than a football game, but which I'm looking forward to. So hopefully we pick some win.
Groupie dolls in front, down to the 16th pole. Judy the Beauty, dance card on the outside, running after her. Groupie doll digs in for all she has, and she has enough to win it. Groupie doll did it again.
I'm cold like a knife. I'm sharp like a blade and cold like a knife.
Jim Rohn with America's Best Racing. How are you today? Happy Breeders' Cup. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Happy Breeders' Cup.
Are you doing so far? So far, so good?
So far, so good. Our horse runs in the next race. So I'm a little bit nervous, but so far, so good.
Here comes Misdirection. On the inside, Renee's got zip. Tight end touchdown between them. Here's the finish. Misdirection has won it again.
Thank you very much. This does not suck. This does not suck.
This is a Snickerdoodle cookie with a sea salt caramel ice cream.
Snickerdoodle cookies are very, very popular.
The beer is fantastic. I love it.
There's one gal with a big hat, and there have been a lot of fabulous fascinators, and I love how people are coordinating their outfits.
The adrenaline of all of the jockeys and the horses and the betting, the environment, the people, the hats, the food. That's right, the drinks.
Here's Wise Dan alongside of Zabuval. Silencio coming up the fence. Wise Dan's got him. Wise Dan, brilliant in the mile.
I swear like a smoking breath. I drink in the park.
Mucho Macho Man, declaration of war. Fort Lauderdale on the inside. Mucho Macho Man has the lead close to home. Mucho Macho Man, declaration of war. Will take charge of Vital Man. Mucho Macho Man.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. With a newly designed and engineered internet wagering platform, enhanced video streaming, additional funding options, and 3 new individual wagering opportunities, CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. Combine that with our all-new mobile website. You have 2 of the most powerful, innovative, and advanced wagering platforms available today. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
And welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning means a visit from Jeremy Plonk, HorsePlayerNow.com and Night School. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Seth. Always great to be with you.
Always happy to have you on board. And as usual on Wednesday morning, we always like to go back and look at Tuesday night because Tuesday night is Night School. And for folks who want to pick up the archive, last night, very interesting. I think you have a topic that has really piqued a lot of fans' attention over the past few years, handicapping contests.
Yeah, we've got together some of the executives that put together some of the bigger tournaments in the country. The Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge that just concluded, the National Handicapping Championship in Vegas that'll come up at the end of January in 2014, and then We also got one of the top tournament players in the country, Christian Helmers. He's featured in this new Esquire series that's going to debut next year, Horse Players. And Christian's finished second in that Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge twice in the last 3 years, earned $250,000 in those 2 tournament bids alone. And between the 3 of them, they shared a lot of the nuts and bolts and strategies that go into playing handicapping contests and tournament, both on a local, online, and national standpoint. And it was in a video format with 3 long-form interviews. It ran about 50 minutes long. We had a live chat afterwards. Got some interaction from the fans, and a good experience. It's a topic we do once a year in night school, and it's always popular.
Are you a handicapping contest player? I have to say, I'm not a regular, but when I get a chance, when I'm at some kind of a venue or sometimes some of the online handicapping contests, I'll jump on board. And I enjoy it because I think you have to come at it from a little bit of a different perspective and really look for value.
Well, the good news and bad news is I'm not eligible for a lot of the contests because I'm a contractor for a lot of the companies that put on the major contests. So, but when I can get a chance to play, you know, I'm more an observer of the handicapping contest scene. I played a few way back when. I think I've played about 2 in my lifetime. But it's something that I would like to do when kind of the career turns into that mode and I get an opportunity to do more of it. I think I would do okay in it, but I don't know if I could adapt my strategy of what I'm looking for to the price point that you need to win those tournaments. Because one thing I've done as a journalist is I've covered a lot of these tournaments, and I can tell you, like the NHC, there's 20 races, 10 optional, 10 mandatory, and the same kind of prices and totals win that contest most years. And I've gone back and looked at the winners' playbooks that they've done over the years and what 20 wagers they made. And the similarities are eerie, Seth. I'll tell you, it's almost like there's a pattern to win those. How the races shake out and which players' opinions will fit that pattern kind of helps to play out who those winners will be. And you kind of know going into it based on the number of races, the type of races, how the caps are set in the amount that you can earn in each, what kind of total it will take to win, and you have to kind of work backwards from that. So I don't know if I played if I could just look at a race and say, well, I really think the 6-1's the horse to play, but I'm going to play the 9-1 because it fits the mold better. I don't know if I could get myself to do that.
Yeah, and that's interesting, and it certainly is that way. As I say, from having done it myself in contests, you have to adjust your thinking a little bit. There's no question about it. And I'm right in the same boat you are. Right here at the Teletheater in Albany, we have a contest every month, but I'm not allowed to play in those either. So I look enviously at the folks because they are a lot of fun. But I only occasionally jump in myself. And speaking of night school, you have about 3 more sessions left for the year?
Yeah, that was week 37 of 40, so we got 38, 39, and 40 coming up. Next week is going to be a big one. It's our annual town hall meeting, the 3rd year we've done this, where we'll get 10 to 12 racing executives around the industry all to come in, be accountable in the live chat. We'll talk about the topics in racing, what's going right, what's going wrong, and allow the fans, thousands of folks who will join in the live chat to pose their questions directly to major management folks in the racing industry. So it's a great sounding board and opportunity for those people to see what the real fans really think and the real customers. I think customer is a better word than fan when you're talking about people who support horse racing. And so if you're a customer of the racing game, and I know you are if you're there watching your show and playing with Capital OTB, it's a night school you want to be at, because if you've ever had a suggestion for the racing industry, you're going to get direct access.
Excellent. We'll have to pump that up a little bit on Tuesday morning on the show as well, because that is a great opportunity for folks. All right, Jeremy, let's jump into the racing. Really kind of a light racing weekend stakes-wise, but I have one race from Saturday, and I thought we'd use that as a foundation to move away from, because it was a 2-year-old race, the Hollywood Preview on Sunday. That was on Sunday on the weekend. And we're going to watch that, and then maybe just talk about some of the other 2-year-olds, because you are the author of the Countdown to the Crown column. We're getting about that time when it'll be the first of the year and the switch from 2 years old to 3-year-olds, and we have to start thinking about the Triple Crown. So I just want to pick your brain a little bit on maybe some of these 2-year-olds that otherwise may be floating just slightly under the radar. But one going back to this weekend that certainly has created some buzz and probably is floating over the radar now for some people. Hollywood Preview. We're going to watch the stretch run. Coming down the stretch, it will be number 2, Shared Belief, over number 4, Kobe's Back. Shared Belief won the career debut October 19th up at Golden Gate, subsequently sold by Gary and Mary West to a partnership that includes Jim Rome. Nice. It loses misdirection, picks up this very nice runner we're seeing win pretty easily over Kobe's Back. And Kobe's Back had some talent shown earlier this summer, getting a career debut stakes victory at Hollywood Park. But this was a comeback of a little bit of a layoff from him. But Shared Belief, now announced to be going to the Cash Call Futurity, could be an interesting 2-year-old to keep our eyes on as that calendar does change into the 3-year-old season.
Well, the end of this race was impressive. I mean, they went 11:78, the last eighth of a mile. I mean, that's really strong on the back end. The race, the Hollywood Preview, was 2 seconds faster than the Moccasin, which was run the day before for the 2-year-old fillies. And you say, well, you know, sometimes you can't compare times. There were 12.5 lengths between first and third in this race. So the final time is very legitimate when you see that final margin so large. It's not like 5 horses hit the wire in that fast time. And, you know, this is a horse who, you know, by Candy Ride, a lot of folks will think will go a long distance. The Dam Common Hope was eased in her only route try. She went 1 for 5 in her career. And there's some sprint in the Dam side of the pedigree here. So this may be a really strong one-turn horse that may not translate to 2. But, boy, what an exciting prospect now. You know, one of the things I do in Countdown to the Crown is I'll look at the obvious horse on the surface, and then I'll also dig into their past performances and try to find some horses under the radar. Except there's a horse in the preview winner's past performances that probably ought to take a little consideration. Write down the name Time Jumper. Time Jumper was a horse who was beaten in the career debut by the eventual preview winner and was actually bet to favoritism both from the Hollendorfer barn, and Time Jumper had bays on and was bet to the favorite. So that horse was considered the stronger of the Hollendorfer horses coming out in the first-time start. And then Time Jumper had a return race at Golden Gate since then, got into some trouble at 7-5, and finished out of the money. But this is a horse with a little bit of a future. So if you're looking for one of those bombers down the road, if Time Jumper shows up in Southern California over the winter at Santa Anita for Hollendorfer, it might be one to watch.
All right, we'll keep that in mind. Let's shift our attention now a little earlier on the calendar. A couple weeks back, we looked at the Nashua from Aqueduct. Again, this is November 3rd, a mile at Aqueduct, Grade 2 event, $250,000 purse. 2-year-olds as noted, and we're going to get your thoughts on Cairo Prince, who is going to be the winner in here. Coming down the stretch, it will be Cairo Prince, winning pretty easily at 4-1. I thought Financial Mogul from Rick Violette and the Klarovich folks at 13-1. Running second was also one that maybe will be interesting to watch going forward. But Cairo Prince, this is only the second career start. Easy winner of the Maiden Breaker October 6th in the debut. Now comes back for Kieran McLaughlin. Also notable, strung out in the 12-post here. So in a 12-horse field, leaves from the 12-post, wins pretty easily. Cairo Prince is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it wasn't a 12-hole situation where the horse was able to sprint clear and get over. He was pretty much 4 wide the whole way, and then 3 wide when they got to the quarter pole. So a lot of ground loss in that race for Cairo Prince. You know, by Pioneer of the Mile, this is a horse who you think, you know, 2 for 2 lifetime is won at 6 furlongs at a mile. Will get some distance. The Damn Holy Babette was all sprints. She was a very good horse, 6 for 13 and a stakes winner, but she was all sprints. So Cairo Prince going longer and longer. Who knows if these horses can get a mile and a quarter, but the questions we want to know now is can they get to 2 turns, which will be the next, you know, objective for them. Can they get a mile in the 16th? Can they win a race at a mile and an eighth in the prep scene and just kind of get along that Triple Crown trail? All these horses looked like they were lumbering and really struggling with the track. It was a slow race, a slow final time, but I think that track was pretty demanding at Aqueduct over the weekend. So a tough race to look at visually and make a lot of conclusive definitions about, but there's a pretty nice pedigree there. You've got a horse who's 2 for 2, and he's in the right hands. So Cairo Prince, definitely one to watch. You know, a couple of years ago, Kieran left Alpha up in New York when the weather wasn't too bad and gave him a couple shots in the winter season. We'll see with the Jerome early in the calendar. I think January 4th is the Jerome this year. You know, if the weather isn't too bad, will Cairo Prince go south? Or will that be a horse that Kieran may leave behind like he did with Alpha to take a shot at one of those January stakes?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the winner shakes out, given what Princess of Silmar did over the Intertrack last year. Some folks may be willing to hang around a little bit this year. And, in fact, on the girls' side, Rhea Antonio, I believe, will be on the Intertrack this year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, another race that I thought was interesting for the 2-year-olds that may float under the radar. Of course, they had that unique September meet at Churchill this year, moved a couple of their bigger 2-year-old races to that September meet. One of those was the Iroquois back on September 7th. We're going to watch the stretch run. Claiborne's going to get it done for Dale Romans and Donegal Racing as the number 5 horse. 34-1 in this race. Kind of surprising given the fact that this horse came out of a maiden special win. It was at Ellis, so I guess there was a class question mark. But, you know, you have Dale Romans in the mix, a well-known name. Claiborne is going to just get it done here, 34-1 over the number 10 Smart Cover at 20-1. Right on Curlin, the 2-1 favorite, is going to wind up fourth behind Tapiture for Steve Asmussen. But again, interesting long shot. Claiborne subsequently misses the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with a ding. But your thoughts on him moving forward?
Well, he had the buck shins and missed the Breeders' Cup, and that's not, that's not the end of the world. A lot of 2-year-olds, in fact, maybe most 2-year-olds statistically, will have buck shins at some point and need a little bit of time off. You know, we saw some time off and some minor boo-boos really come back to help a horse like I'll Have Another a couple years ago, in that he ran well early in the summer, then he had to go on the shelf, missed some of those heavyweight races, didn't come back for the the Hollywood, the Cash Call Futurity, those kind of races, and he was a fresher horse come spring. So if Claiborne's good enough, this will actually help him in the long run, I think. He won't be over-raced at 2, because obviously if he would have run in the Breeders' Cup, he may have come back in the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill. You're putting a lot of miles on the wheels because you have a 2-year-old who's showing some ability and you want to get something out of him. When we talked about some of those other horses, Cairo Prince and the Dam Side pedigrees that may not really translate to a distance, that's not the case with Claiborne. You know, his Damn Joyful is a half-sister to 50 Stars, who won the Louisiana Derby, and 50 Stars made it all the way to the Kentucky Derby, was a run-all-day kind of distance-type horse. So Claiborne's going to get some distance, and he'll be a little bit fresher when we see him next time. I would imagine Dale Romans will bring this horse back at Gulfstream sometime, maybe February-ish, kind of a return date, and we'll see what he can do when he's back.
Very good. Let's shift our attention to one more, also at Churchill Downs, but this was at this October meet, the traditional fall meet, October 27th. It is the Street Sense $60,000 purse, a mile on the dirt, and I toss in this one. We'll watch the 1A Coastline get it done for Mark Casse. Third career start. The career debut was at Churchill back in September, ran second that day, followed up with a win breaking the maiden at Keeneland. Now goes 2 for 3 with this win in the Little Stakes, the Street Sense. Again, it is the 1A Coastline getting it done at 4-1 for Mark Casse. And I toss this one in because this one is one of the pre-entries for the Delta Downs jackpot coming up. So Coastline, kind of interesting as well.
Well, he would be a good horse for the Delta jackpot. In this race, he was very tractable and finished up strong. I like the way they went here. 24-3, the last quarter mile for this kind of race was not bad at all, and I thought that it was a good finish. You know, he's by Speightstown, so you don't know how far he's going to run, but I think, this horse can get a little bit of a distance. He got past the one-turn mile here in just a field of 6, so it was a good stepping stone race because one-turn miles are easy races in terms of endurance. You've just got the one turn. They don't go that fast early on. The half was only 47 in this race, so they were able to finish up good and a field of 6. So there were only 5 rivals, not a lot of trouble to get into, that sort of thing like that. This was a good stepping stone race to a stakes race for Coastline, and Mark Casse very good with the 2-year-olds, as we know. Can he get one of these good striding, good performing 2-year-olds to develop and really become an elite 3-year-old? Casse hasn't done that yet in his career. He's been around a long time. We know he can get the 2-year-olds ready to go, but, horses like Perspective and some of those he's had on the Derby Trail in recent years just haven't quite been the 3-year-old stars. And so we'll see if Coastline can kind of get Casse over that hump into that next echelon.
And the guys in the control room have banned me from mentioning Uncaptured ever again, so I won't bring that one up into this conversation. So, Jeremy, give us your idea. I mean, we're still, the better part of 2 months out from the end of the year, but at this point in the year, we haven't mentioned today because, again, these ones are a little more in the consciousness. New Year's Day, Havana, Honor Code, Strong Mandate. But at the top of the class for you at this point?
I think it's Honor Code. I think he's the best of the 2-year-olds I've seen. The race at Saratoga was just, drop your jaw and wonder, wow, what did we just see? Again, that was at one turn, and we have to see how all these horses translate to 2 turns, because even Honor Code's mama was a good 7-furlong type horse. So I think Honor Code's the most talented of the 2-year-olds we've seen, but have we seen the best 2-year-olds yet? I say probably not. There is a strong performance here late in the year, the late Aqueduct meets. You've got the end of the year towards at Hollywood Park, building up to some races. I think we'll still see some horses at Gulfstream debut a little bit earlier than we've seen them in the past now. We've got those early meets at Gulfstream. Fairgrounds kicking up here we had a really nice end of the year at Fairgrounds last year with horses like Golden Soul and My Loot running at the end of the 2-year-old year at at Fairgrounds, and then becoming major factors in the Derby and the Preakness finishes. So I think we're still to see the best. I mean, statistically, we've probably already seen the Derby winner run somewhere. I mean, typically the Derby winner is a horse who's already debuted by now. But I think if you just want to say who's the most brilliant and elite horse of this crop, I think we've yet to see him, because I haven't been wowed yet by any 2-year-olds other than Honor Code. I really think he's good, and I'm shocked that he lost to Champagne, but he also had trouble in that race, and one loss does not certainly detract too much from a horse's potential.
You did mention Time Jump. Are there any, 1 or 2 others that are floating under the radar for you?
That's one I'm definitely looking at this point, and I'm in that research mode with the Countdown to the Crown and working on developing some things. We're actually trying to put together right now a first-of-its-kind preseason annual, kind of like a Street and Smith or a Lindy's that you would normally see a magazine in other sports. So we're in the research stage now of putting all those kind of horses together, and hopefully if we can secure another sponsor or two, this preseason annual will be ready to go for the first of the year, and I'm looking forward to that. It'll be something that people can read free online and download and really get into. I mean, we'll probably get into 300-400 horses to watch, and all those under the radar horses will certainly have surfaced by then.
I like it. And speaking of that, researching, we haven't seen perhaps the best yet, et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts on the November Kentucky Derby future pool? I guess is all others going to wind up 2 to 5 or 3 to 5?
Yeah, and you know what? Everybody clamors for that pari-mutuel Derby future pool where you have unlimited entries or 200 entries or whatever like that. But what that would do would eliminate the big wagers on the all others. And to be honest with you, the reason this pool has been financially successful for Churchill is the large wagers on the all others. And so if you take that option off the table, I think there will actually be less betting on the Derby futures, maybe one time on a novelty pool. But I think by going early, I think you're going to see huge wagers on the all others at that point, and I think that's not bad for business. And it gives a little kickstart to think, hey, you can't start talking Derby too early for me. So I think if they're doing a November pool for the future wagers, it's a good thing. But you've got to remember this: it's got to make decent, sound financial advice for them to do it, and it's got to be good for promotion. And I think by having the all others in there and promoting 23 horses and not 200 horses. It serves both of their purposes there. It has a mission in the future pool. It's not there to just give everybody an opportunity to bet on any horse they want to. If that's the case, call our buddy Johnny Avello out at the Wynn Las Vegas or get out to one of the race books out that way and place a future wager if you're looking to bet that horse who's 167th on the list.
I just can't see taking the 23 individuals. I can't imagine odds that would attract me in November, though, unless it's changed the bet to will make it to the Derby, something like that. Now all of a sudden maybe I'd be a little bit interested in taking 35 to 1 or something.
Well, yeah, and that's why even in the first pool of the future wager in the past, which has typically been about the middle of January, I believe, I have a 40 to 1 threshold on any horse I'll take in January. I wouldn't bet a single horse under 40 to 1 at that point, no matter how much I like them, because they're probably 25 to 1 to make the gate. Yeah, and like you're saying, you're probably better off taking odds on whether this horse will make the Derby by in November. So yeah, it's a difficult bet to take. But again, if people just jump in and go all in for the all others, they serve their pari-mutuel purpose. They get the name of the Derby out a couple months earlier, and really it's a win-win. Nobody's hurt by it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing. It's PR to get the word out about the Derby a little early, so I don't have any arguments with that. Jeremy, certainly appreciate the visit this morning. Again, we'll tell people they can go to the Night School archive from last night. Handicapping contest was the topic. Pull that up. And as noted, next week, sounds good, Town Hall, a lot of the movers and shakers in the industry, and you will have the opportunity to make contact with them. And as I say, we'll promo that next Tuesday as well. Jeremy, thanks for the visit this morning. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, and if you can make it, Seth, we'd love to have you in the Town Hall meeting, so we'll talk about that off air.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Thank you.
All right, we'll wrap up this section, go to a commercial break. When we come back, Gene Kirshner from the Buffalo News, as noted, he was out at Santa Anita a week and a half or so ago at the Breeders' Cup, not only as a fan and a writer, but he was out there with Thoroughfan as well as one of their board members. So we'll talk about all of that right after this.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network. The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right, the 2013 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes and a seat at the 2014 National Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month, the Capital Cup on December 7th. So sign up today online at capitalotb.com or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook. And don't forget our Showviver Series, Capital OTB's online handicapping contest. Across America, thanks for joining us this morning, and we are now happy to be joined by Gene Kirshner, Buffalo News racing columnist, and as noted before the break, Gene was also out there at the Breeders' Cup with Thorofan and as a racing writer and fan himself. Gene, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. And I did visit the Thorofan website, pulled up some of the pictures from Breeders' Cup weekend, saw you were out there with Michael Amo. I know you're a board member on Thorofan. Just give us, for folks who aren't familiar with the organization, a little background on Thorofan and what kind of a response you got out there Breeders' Cup weekend.
Yeah, we had a table out there to, generate some interest and some membership. We're a nonprofit 501c3 public charity, and our goals are really, to retain and enrich existing fans of the sport, and really to seek out new ones and attract new ones that are there. And we did probably about 40 or 50 new memberships out there, nice. And a lot from the Southern California region where we didn't really have much of a presence. We've got nice presences in Kentucky, New Jersey, Florida. Obviously, New York, Saratoga, where this grassroots organization, took hold originally. But we're trying to do different things, promoting educational opportunities for fans, seminars. We try to have different meetups at the track. One of the benefits of membership is we're trying to do more at each of the tracks, working with them for access to the fans. So, maybe a tour of the backside or, a chance to go in the paddock. And so it's a really good group. It's $25 a year to join, and it's $20 annually after that. You get a free gift along with it, so you get a little bit of value even with the initial join. And it's a nice group, and we're just trying to promote horse racing.
Yeah, and I know Michael himself, Michael Amo, the founder of Thorofan, is on that panel, the New York State, going out and taking comments from racing fans around the state, and that's then getting presented to the movers and shakers in the New York State industry. They put out a report last year. He was down at Belmont, probably a month or so ago.
We've got some national presence. Our awards banquet is now going to be part of the Eclipse Awards ceremonies. Last year, we presented our first annual Thorofan Award to Mrs. Wolfson, who owned the firm down at Gulfstream Park, and the NTRA was so pleased with the event that they decided to make it an official event of Eclipse Weekend. So it's another thing. So we're gaining some momentum, gaining a little steam. We are grassroots. We're all volunteers. Nobody gets paid. I use my CPA background to be the treasurer of the group, so have some fun with that.
There you go. And again, for folks who aren't familiar, it's THOROFAN. If you type that into Google, you go to the website and you can get information there about joining. Again, it gives fans a little bit of a voice in the industry, helps folks feel like they're participating, so that's all good. Gene, again, you were out there. Part of that was Thorofan, but part of that you do write racing. You're a racing columnist for the Buffalo News, also a big racing fan. So we've been touching on for the past week and a half, folks, thoughts on the Breeders' Cup weekend. I've said, I was really looking forward to the distaff. That maybe fell apart a little bit in the fact that we didn't get the ding-dong battle in the stretch, but certainly Beholder, very impressive. But by the end of the day on Saturday, with Misdirection and Groupie Doll, Wise Dan, Gary Stevens, Mike Smith, Kathy Ritvo, and Mucho Macho Man, I thought it was a great weekend. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, it was a super weekend. My assignment for the news was to review the classic and do some post commentary. And just turning 50 last week, I was kind of pleased seeing the 50-year-old jockey Gary Stevens bringing it home for the old guys. So that was a good thing. Mucho Macho Man, kind of sentimental favorite in my heart because he was my first ever Derby pick that I made for the newspaper in 2011. Now, he did me pretty well back then, finishing third, but it was great to see him win. I feel pretty good about him maybe being the older male champion, just based on the classic win. And, he didn't skip anything during the year. And, but I feel good about that. The distaff, what a game, try and just competitive for Princess of Silmar just to make the trip out there. I'm leaning towards her actually for my Eclipse boat. For the 3-year-old female, even though Beholder beat her. You look at the body of work, and she won the Alabama, the Kentucky Oaks, and the Beldame 3 big races. She faced Holder in the Beldame and won. Maybe it's my East Coast bias, but I'm leaning that way. The other big race, for us in Buffalo locally, the Juvenile Fillies race, won by Rhea Antonio via DQ. Trainer Jeremiah Engelhardt is the first Finger Lakes trainer that's ever battled the Breeders' Cup winner. And Jeremiah, right down the road, I sent him a text afterwards saying, what does this mean for Finger Lakes? And, I got the text back that said, means I'll be there on Monday morning to watch my horses train. I have 36 of them to see, back to business.
Yeah, we have Tony Kalo, the announcer from Finger Lakes, on every Tuesday, and I asked him the Tuesday after the Breeders' Cup, I said, what was it like? And he said, things were jumping at Finger Lakes as Jeremiah's horse came under the wire, and then the subsequent inquiry and disqualification. And he said the same thing. And then, of course, Jeremiah's right back at work Monday morning. And I think it was that Tuesday, got back in the winner's circle at Finger Lakes. So you talk about the both sides of the industry.
Yeah, and he's a super guy, and it couldn't have happened to a better guy. He comes from a racing family. His mother's very involved with the horses. His dad's a trainer. His brother, Jeff's a new trainer at Finger Lakes. So it was nice to see, kind of a hometown. It's only about an hour down the road here, down the thruway to Finger Lakes from Buffalo in Canandaigua, and it's a neat little track if you've never been there.
Speaking of that, I know in Buffalo, you're right over the border from Fort Erie. We had Elisa Blow from Fort Erie on as a regular with us this fall. Our last visit with her, we kind of talked a little bit about the situation up there. And as I say, you're right over the border, so you maybe are a little bit in touch with that. What are the feelings out there as far as Fort Erie going forward?
Well, right now, things are not looking so good out there. I mean, there's been talk of maybe doing some festival-type racing over there where it's a couple weeks worth of racing, and but not really having horses being stabled there and having them shipped in, and it's really just a mess right now, and it'll be very, very unfortunate. It's got probably the most beautiful infield I've seen at all the tracks that I've been, to around the country. It's a B-level track, and a lot of the Woodbine horses will come down and run down there. It has the $500,000 Prince of Wales Stakes, which is the second leg of the Canadian Triple Crown, which I got privileged to cover this year. So it'll really be a shame for this area, but I'll tell you, it used to be United States attendance would be 80%, Canadian 20%, but with customs now and trying to get over the bridge, it's just it can take up to an hour sometimes just to get over the bridge over there to see the races. So it's probably swung to 25-75 in favor of Canadian attendance.
I didn't realize that. So logistically, it's just become a problem for the Americans to get there.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And I kind of dread sometimes having to go over there, other than just because of the bridge. I mean, it's just with ever since 9/11, it's been a lot harder to get over and scrutinized, and it takes 5 or 6 minutes per car, and if you get in a long line and the weekend, forget about it.
Yeah, that's too bad because I've never been, but I watched the simulcast signal, and just as you say, I think it looks like a beautiful little track. We had Elisa on regularly this fall, so we handicapped some races one day a week with her, and I kind of became interested in the product. That I've heard this festival idea floated. I just logistically, I don't quite see how that'll work. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, though. That is certainly a fluid story up there in Ontario. But let's shift our attention back, Breeders' Cup, and talk a little bit about some of the Eclipse divisions. I wanted to touch on and go back to Friday at the Breeders' Cup. Look at the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. We're going to watch the number 12, Golden Sense, come down the stretch and get this done under Rafael Bejarano. Subsequently, they're talking about sending Golden Sense to the Cigar Mile, and they think potentially Golden Sense has a shot at the 3-year-old Eclipse. What are your thoughts?
Maybe a chance for a champion sprinter.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I just don't see it for the 3-year-olds. I think it's a 2-horse race between Will Take Charge and Orb. At this point, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to spend some time looking at it. Will Take Charge has the 1 Grade 1 in the Travers and 2 Grade 2s wins in the Rebel and the Pennsylvania Derby, whereas Orb has 2 Grade 1 wins, Kentucky Derby, Florida Derby, and a Grade 2 in the Fountain of Youth. And then you look at, some of the other body of work, Will Take Charge lost that race by a nostril in the Classic. So that weighs heavily and almost, puts that up there with another Grade 1 win for me. So I'm leaning a little bit towards Will Take Charge over Orb, just because Orb really, after the Derby, didn't really do a whole lot. Came in third in the Travers and the Belmont, but I think he was kind of just galloping up afterwards with tired horses. So that's where I'm at. I'm not really at this point looking at Golden Sense as a 3-year-old, but never know with could make a case for him at the sprinter level.
Yeah, it's a division that certainly is up in the air with nobody really taking a stranglehold on it. So I think from the buzz I've heard, I think there's a lot of folks are leaning towards Will Take Charge, let's put it that way, but not with super enthusiasm, but that just seems to be the direction that makes most logic. But when I heard Doug O'Neill saying they'll try the Cigar Mile to make a move for the 3-year-old Eclipse, I don't know, that becomes questionable. But as far as Grade 1s, that would put him certainly in some pretty good company. Won the Santa Anita Derby earlier, the Dirt Mile, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and if you could add the Cigar Mile. But yeah, it seems like a stretch to me, but it's going to be very interesting. Another division I'll ask you about that I think is up in the air. What are your thoughts on the 2-year-olds? Do you go for New Year's Day off a maiden win and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, or do we wait, see what Honor Code does in the Remsen? Can he still wrestle it away?
Well, I think we do have to take a look at the whole year, and not if it's today. If I had to vote for today, I'd probably go with New Year's Day. And I spent some time looking at the pedigree, which I always do after the juvenile winner wins the race. And it's interesting, Street Cry's the sire, the sire of Zenyatta and Street Sense, Derby winner. Underneath, Just Whistle Dixie is the Dam, who was a very fast miler, and her sire was Dixie Union, the sire of Union Rag. So there's some solid pedigree there for New Year's Day. Looking forward to maybe the Derby. But right now, yeah, he would have my Eclipse vote today. But it's not today.
Yeah, exactly. And that I actually advocate that. I think a lot of voters tend to look at the Breeders' Cup and give those races too much weight and make their decision right after that. But now we have a perfect example of why not to do that, and I think it is Princess Asilmar. You say you're still tilting in her direction. I don't argue with that. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of us, myself included, were willing to award her the 3-year-old crown after the Alabama. But at that point, Beholder hadn't made her comeback yet. And you have to realize that's similar to what a lot of folks do with the Breeders' Cup. There's still 2 months left of racing. A couple of interesting things can happen. There are still some big races, Clark, Cigar Mile for the 2-year-olds, the Cash Call Futurity. So I always say, pull back, wait until the end of the year and watch some of those other races. But we have to get, before the end of the show, to the big category. Wise Dan probably sealed it up for Horse of the Year again.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else that's going to take it away from him at this point. His only his only hole in the resume is that Shadwell Turf Mile, which came off the turf and went on the poly track, and he got nipped by a head by Silver Max. So I'm leaning towards Wise Dan at this point, but there's still some racing left. We'll see what happens. I don't think there's anything that'll probably change my mind, but we'll see.
And speaking of that, and I mentioned the Clark, Wayne Lucas has talked about potentially Will Take Charge in the Clark. Will Take Charge wins the Clark, then all of a sudden I think that 3-year-old Eclipse is a slam dunk.
Yeah, that would probably put it right in his lap.
Yeah, you'd have to think so. All right, Gene, we got to wrap things up, but we certainly appreciate the visit this morning. Again, you can find Gene's work regularly at the Buffalo News. Does cover racing for them. Gene, we appreciate the visit. We'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate the time this morning.
All right, Gene Kirshner from the Buffalo News. A little earlier on Jeremy Plonk, Night School and HorsePlayerNow.com. That's going to wrap things up. Before we do, I just pulled out, we were talking some of these divisions, and I pulled out the the latest Watchmaker, Mike Watchmaker, every week breaks down the divisions and his personal thoughts, just to give you some ideas in the older male category. And this was updated earlier this week. Watchmaker's watch for this week, Wise Dan, is his older male. His top 3-year-old male is Will Take Charge. 3-year-old female, Beholder. 2-year-old male is New Year's Day. 2-year-old female is She's a Tiger. So he's kind of going with Breeders' Cup results. Of course, older female, he has Royal Delta. I think it's going to shake out by default, even though she lost a couple of races at the end of the year. I think still Royal Delta is probably the leader there. But some of these other divisions are a little bit dicey. Some of them I think are sewn up. I think at this point, Wise Dan, Horse of the Year, probably is sewn up. But some of these other divisions still are either going to shake out in the next couple of months, month and a half, because there is a couple of Cigar Mile, Clark, Hollywood Futurity maybe offer some opportunities to solidify some divisions. If they don't, the voting is going to be very, very interesting in a couple of these categories. All right, that's going to wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Wednesday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. 9 o'clock is the Handicappers Report. Hopefully you got some good information from that 9 to 10 hour. You make some money this afternoon, then tune back in tomorrow, and we'll do it all again. So again, good luck at the races today. We'll see you tomorrow.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.